I was so happy to see you last time that I forgot to record, you know?
It was, I mean, it's a good trial run.
Yeah. It's always, I always love to talk to you anyways, whether we record it or not, it doesn't really matter.
Me too.
Hey, how is New York?
It's alive. It's definitely alive and well. It is definitely pressing me to be more balanced and to practice saying no because there are so many activities, so many people throwing events and parties and dinners. It's beautiful here. So it's still raining a lot. It's very green and it feels very, very joyful.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, you lived in New York for such a long time. You know, in what way is New York different now? I mean, many things happened, right? It's also post-COVID. But is it in any way different for you coming back to New York?
It definitely, it's funny. I think it's more similar than I expected.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a wonderful thing. It actually feels quite normal in many ways. Certainly there's some restrictions in terms of mask wearing, but not that many. And yeah, I would say that it just feels like New York with a bit of maybe added serotonin, like a little bit happier than
before.
But there have been moments in the past when I've experienced New York like this too. You know, after a week of rain and then suddenly it's sunny and beautiful out. This feeling is there too, but this is on another level because there's just pent up energy that's there that wants to be let out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. So it's quite stimulating to you right now. For me, LA is a little bit like that, you know, but you say New York, for you at least, is on a different level.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure it's on a different level. I think that there's a desire to socialize and connect with other people in New York, unlike any other place I've been to before. LA, I think that there's a desire to experience, to at times be seen. There is also a desire to connect, but I think New York socializing is an art form here in a way, and I think that people have been so repressed from socialization over the last year and a half that they are seizing every moment. There's a lot of dancing. There's a ton of music, kind of even in the streets. Yeah, it's very joyous.
I saw it on your Instagram story. One event you went to recently where there was music going outside. Everyone seemed to be quite happy. No one was wearing a mask, I noticed, right? Is that so back to normal?
So anything outside, no one's wearing a mask.
Okay.
Inside, so I got a coffee this morning, for instance, and inside we wore a mask. Some places they don't require it, some places they do. I think that these are going to continue going away actually over the next couple of weeks. I mean, California, as of today, I think is fully open. If I have that correct.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's happening. Things are opening up here. How are things where you are? Are they and still a bit locked down, no?
No, actually, we're opening up too, step by step. Yeah. We're pretty close to normal, I would say. But these changes came only a few weeks ago. Okay, so California and the US in general was definitely ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's good. And now the good weather is back. People are outside and happy. The numbers are going down. So everything looks good as of now, at least.
I'm happy to hear that. Yeah, I think we deserve a happy, a bit more carefree summer.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. How long do you stay in New York? 1 month, you said, right?
Just 1 month, yeah. So I got here at the very beginning of June and I'll leave Yeah, so I'll be here exactly a month. I got here June 5th, I think, and I'll leave here July 5th.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to stay for the 4th of July, which will be fun and a celebration, I'm sure, here in New York. And then back to Los Angeles for July.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of questions for you, my friend. You're a talented guy. So happy that we met a few years ago. And I always love when you tell the story how we met, if you don't mind.
I enjoy telling it. So yeah, I guess it was a few years ago now when Kenshō was in its infancy. I think it was still in 2018, actually, 2018 or 2019, and 2019. And my co-founder Krista Berlincourt and myself would go to a coffee shop on Montana and Santa Monica called Bar Donna, and we'd go there several times a week, and they'd have free Wi-Fi, and we could eat and have coffee, and it was very chill. And there were often a couple, wasn't sure if they were a couple or friends. To me, they were clearly European. They looked very cool and attractive, and they would be there often. And Krista had a real crush on the man, which, as those listening can imagine, that was Matthias. And one day when Krista was not there with me, or maybe she hadn't arrived yet, I actually went up to you and I said, "Hey, like, I see you here a lot. I'm Danny." Really, as sort of a wingman for my co-founder. But of course, as it happens, we became very close friends, and I became friends with your partner Manuela as well, and yeah, and then we created a men's group together, and yeah, it was the start of a really special friendship. That's, I think directly and indirectly improved and changed my life, which is funny how those little moments can happen.
Same for me. Thank you so much for doing that, Danny. Grateful. I think I remember it very well. I just came back. I think it was Manuela's birthday. I just came back from Joshua Tree. We went to Bardona to work for a few hours, and there he was sitting and working. Yeah, it was so good to connect. Cool.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun looking back on those moments. And there's so many moments like that in life, right? Where we either elect to step in, or to take a risk, to take a leap of faith, or we don't. And it's there are rare occasions where life can really shift and go on kind of a different track. And who knows, perhaps we would have met each other through another set of friends or whatever. But
yeah, for sure. But yeah, sometimes these, small or short encounters, can lead to a change of direction or good friendships, or, whatever it is in life. And I think that's why it's so important. And just go out to just be aware, who is around me. Because sometimes you're so focused on what is currently happening in your life that you forget who's around you. And these are good teaching moments, I think, at least for me.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, the way I met Krista was not that much different, to be honest. We were in a WhatsApp group for a Burning Man camp.
Mm-hmm.
I was in between jobs. I was evaluating a couple other ideas. I had launched a month before Kenshō meditation. Mm-hmm. And this woman texted to the group saying that she was going to drive out to Burning Man by herself from Los Angeles. And I said, "Hey, why don't we meet up and we can talk about whether a caravan makes sense?" I had a few friends that I was driving with. And because we got coffee, we ended up creating this company. That was really, really how it happened.
So for those who don't know, Krista is the one you co-founded Kenshō Health with, which we will talk about later on.
That's one of those groups, again, where I might not have reached out.
Yeah.
Like it took like a little extra moment of effort or consideration and maybe even risk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Before we dive into what Kenshō is and what you guys are all about, who is Danny Steiner? Where is he from?
Yeah. I'm from Los Angeles, California, which I'm told I embody in terms of the California spirit. My family's actually been in California on my dad's side really since the mid 19th century. So I feel very Californian. In many ways more connected to California than to Los Angeles. I actually even have a redwood on the back of my arm.
Oh, wow.
You can see, maybe you've seen that one. I grew up playing soccer and ended up playing soccer at Princeton University in New Jersey. And where I studied religion, actually. I've always been very, very interested in the esoteric and existential questions. And these faiths that have attempted to answer some of life's biggest questions. I spent much of my career in entertainment and then in management consulting before entering the entrepreneurial space, where I helped start a company called Brahmi, which is a snack food company that's now sold nationally, Whole Foods and Pavilions and things like that, which is a very high protein vegan snack. It's actually a lupini bean. It's a European snack. And then started Kenshō around 3 years ago, I'd say.
Were you with that startup before you founded Kenshō Health?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I started that in New York, actually, back in, I guess, in 2016. I co-founded that with a friend named Aaron Gotti, who's the CEO, and I joined him kind of once he had begun getting going. But I was demoing the product in grocery stores and delivering it, and actually in the factory, like at the picking out the bad product and helping box it together. I kind of did it all.
Oh, wow.
It was a fun experience for sure. It was a little bit wild.
Is the brand still around?
Yeah. You can find it at Exxon and Whole Foods and Pavilions even, I believe. Yeah, it's sold nationally. What other things about me? I've been meditating for a long time. I was lucky enough to be exposed to it when I was 14 after reading Siddhartha and very curious about those different faiths. It's an amazing book. And I had a teacher in high school that actually taught meditation every week. And so I began going to these weekly meditations with him, Mr. Lysat.
So you started practicing when you were quite young, 14?
Yeah, I was super lucky. And I think it's just lucky to be in LA, where meditation was probably more accepted, lucky to be at a private school where there was time and even thought of this. Although meditation is being taught in public schools now, which is really exciting.
In the whole US or just in certain areas? Do you know that?
In certain areas. I think it's still small scale.
Yeah.
But it's happening. It's happening with very young children.
Yeah.
Many of them are, rather than being put into a corner to be quiet, with like a dunce hat on, they're meditating.
Wonderful.
Calm down, let's all breathe together. I mean, what a tool. What an idea.
Yeah, and I think especially when you learn it, I mean, with everything, right? When you learn it early on, such a tremendously helpful tool to have in your toolbox growing up for whatever challenges the world is throwing at you later on. In what areas in California do they teach that? Do you know that?
I think it's not just California. I think it's national. It's not consistently national. Yeah. I think it's kind of like city by city and school district by school district. But more and more are being taught that. I know that the Transcendental Meditation Organization has actually done a lot of that. They go into schools and help teach. And then other programs are beginning to do this as well. I mean, it's it's a great tool. I think that more and more adults are having children, and they have a meditation practice, so they're teaching their children. And things are moving in the direction, it seems.
So that's amazing.
Mm.
Your way into meditation was the teacher.
Mm.
So he was talking about it, or was teaching it to you already?
There's the book and also the teacher. Yeah. So it's reading Siddhartha, and I'm Jewish on my dad's side and Christian on my mom's side, and I never really resonated with either faith fully. Since then, I've actually explored Judaism kind of a bit more, just because I think it's an interesting religion. But I really connected with, essentially the Buddhism that was taught in Siddhartha, and some of the ideas there.
But after the experience with your teacher and you reading the book, what was the next step you took to, become better at it? Did you do it by yourself, or did you, went to a class?
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I actually remember teaching some friends how to meditate when I was a freshman in college. I have a memory of,
That's awesome.
being in a dorm room teaching some women, some boys and girls on the soccer teams.
Totally Danny style. You educated yourself and then you teach it to others.
It feels appropriate. And I picked up yoga in college. Again, doing yoga in college, and then after college, I was pretty early on the Headspace app, actually. So in my kind of earlier 20s, I was using the Headspace app, and thought it was great. So I did that, and then and that led to a bunch of other meditation practices, which eventually led me to doing a certification, a training with One Giant Mind and Johnny Pollard a few years ago.
Yeah, that's cool. Headspace, still a great app when it comes to meditation. I would say really like Andy's voice. Andy's just listening to him takes me into a meditation immediately. Awesome. For those who don't know the app, check it out. I think it became quite famous. I would say most of the people know the app. If someone asks you, Danny, someone who has never meditated before, and ask you the question, how, what's the best way to get into it and to learn about it, what would you say?
I would say I would not recommend Headspace, actually. I'd probably recommend going through, I'd probably recommend doing breathwork first. Doing some sort of simpler breathwork practice. That'd be my first option. If you don't have that available, or if you don't have anyone to teach you, or not sure where to look, I'd probably recommend doing some sort of a Vedic technique, whether that's transcendental meditation. One Giant Mind also does more of an accessible in terms of price and otherwise. They actually have a very good app that teaches it for free. And I think that some of the mindfulness meditations can be a little bit more difficult as an initial first step into it. Whereas Vedic is really just focusing on a mantra oftentimes, or repeating something in your head, which is not so different from doing sort of an active breath work. And it allows you to just relax and not necessarily accomplish anything. And I think that can be a good first step into it. What would you recommend?
Yeah, I think it always depends on the person a little bit, but I would also recommend, especially for men, to first take a breathwork class, because it just gives you a first experience, right? Whereas with meditation, that could take some time till you have a first deeper experience. And with breathwork, it could be a powerful first experience that then really, maybe motivates you to carry on and go deeper and train your mind. And then that could be a beautiful start on that path. There's so much to discover, right? So many techniques in breathwork, in meditation. But yeah, breathwork is definitely a very, very good start. And then, I always recommend people to join a group meditation. This can also be yoga, but I always find group experiences, especially in the beginning, more powerful than when you just do it by yourself. And on top of it, you can just exchange and talk about experiences, and that then could lead to another practice or another course or an app or whatever that is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's all very, very resonant and relevant. I think the other thing that I'd probably mention is just making some sort of commitment to it. And it can be 2 minutes a day, but try it out for 2 weeks, for a month, and be consistent about it. And then have a judgment. Because I think as you mentioned, you're totally right. Meditation is very subtle in terms of recognizing the benefits of it. And it may take several weeks to really notice, like, oh, that person honked at me in the car and I didn't go crazy this time. That's interesting. I just observed it. It didn't fluster me, or that person was late to a meeting and I kept my cool and I showed equanimity. So it's interesting to observe that. But that can take some time. It's a subtler art.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think making it a habit is a crucial one. Doesn't matter how long it is, right? When you start off, and then it's not mindfulness training is not only when you're sitting down, right? It can be you walking your dog, or walking to work, or whatever you do, you cooking or eating food. And I think that's another great thing to do, even if you don't have the time to really sit down and meditate, to, at least put your phone away while you eat and try to be just aware. And that's also a form of meditation.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. Two breathwork apps that I wanted to call out. One of them you may know, Rob Starbucks, which is a breathwork journey, which I'd recommend, which is wonderful. It's definitely, you're going to go places with this. There are different kind of degrees, but it can be a very intense and transformative experience.
Yeah, Rob is mainly teaching the 2-step breath, right? Or
yeah.
Or 3-step.
And then another one, which is voiced by Chris Keener, you probably also know, and Leo from Sanctum actually created this app, which is in the very early days. That's called Lixir, Lixir, and that one's very interesting too. It's very simple. That's just a 2-part breath of, and then you hold at the bottom after a while, and then you take a deep breath and hold, and that's it. It's very simple, and I find that to be a really useful daily tool, which is less involved than some of Rob's breathworks.
Yeah, these are good teachers for sure. And the guy who really made breathwork, I would say, famous during the last few years is Wim Hof, who also has an app which is very accessible and very easy. It's a very simple technique you can do. I still do it actually every morning, 3 to 4 rounds, and then a cold shower.
We did it on the beach together.
Yes, correct.
You and long ago.
Yeah. And sometimes with these tools, I really enjoy the simplicity of it, because sometimes when it becomes, too complicated and too much, then I could get overwhelmed in my practice. And then it's, you're already so close to at one point just stop, because it just takes a lot of willpower. And then just having a simple technique especially in the beginning, it's just very helpful. And Wim Hof, and maybe if you feel like it, doing a cold shower is one of that, I would say.
I'm a huge proponent of cold showers.
Oh, really? Why?
To be honest, I actually started doing it before Wim Hof.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know why, but I started doing it probably in my mid 20s. I'm 33 now,
Mm-hmm.
and then when I got exposed to Wim Hof at Summit, and met him there, I'm like, oh, there's some science behind what I'm doing.
So
And
you started early on.
yeah, I mean, honestly, it just felt good and exhilarating,
Yeah.
and woke me up in a way.
Yeah.
Um, and while I enjoy, and I think part of it too is being in Los Angeles and California, I was always very aware of the water issue, the supply issue of water and fresh water in California. And so for me, I was like, oh, I can also take a really short shower. I don't have the incentive to take a super long one.
Mm-hmm.
This is a benefit for so many reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm a big proponent of the cold shower too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something I really enjoyed when I came back to Switzerland. The lakes are super cold during the winter. It's, accessible, and it's so easy. And you really feel the benefits quite quickly. The cold showers are so energizing and very good to reduce inflammation, and it's good for your cardiovascular system and your heart and many other benefits. It's awesome.
Yeah,
Right.
It wakes you the heck up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really wakes you up in the morning. It's what does he say? It activates your both kind of your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
deep breaths and movement of blood flow in your body. It's great. It's
Mm-hmm.
great.
And even in LA, the water feels actually cold during the winter, I would say. I expected it to be a little bit warmer.
Yeah, no, it's pretty cold.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. It does get pretty cold, and I mean, I think for some people it sounds so awful, but you get used to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think quite quickly, and then you begin to enjoy the feeling of overcoming this this pain, this unpleasant experience. It becomes quite pleasant. It's interesting how that can shift.
Yeah, you get used to it to a certain degree, I would say, but it's always before I step in, it's like, okay, let's do the same with going into a very cold lake. It's the same. You get used to it, but the first step in is always a little challenge, and I think it's good that stays a challenge, and it really makes you then ready for the day. And to me, it's always about, there is a certain level of pain involved, and it's just getting comfortable with it and really embracing it, which itself is such a great teaching moment, because whenever you start embracing that pain you experience, it in a way goes away, and as long as you're fighting it, it stays. It's just way harder. And that's, to me, always, every day when I do it, that's always the teaching.
Yeah, I mean, I think I couldn't agree more. I think meditation is another version of it, right? It's the pain of being quiet with your thoughts and alone with yourself without distraction. And that's, I think, much of meditation, I think, is just the practice of being comfortable, being still. And cold showers or jumping in a cold lake, which is like even more intense, as I think overcoming a perceived fear, right? It's overcoming this thing that we think is going to harm us or hurt us or be super unpleasant, and we can overcome it. And there's practice of that, which can obviously have ripple effects for the rest of our lives. where we can see something that maybe in the past was like, oh, I don't know what I'm gonna do. It's gonna be super unpleasant. Like, what's the worst that can happen? It'll be like a cold shower. You know, it's practice.
100%. 100%. So beneficial. And sometimes, you know, living in LA for such a long time and just being in the yoga, you know, wellness, physical movement community, I always think, you know, it's already such a common tool people are using, but then I'm always surprised that no, we're still in the very, very beginning, especially when it comes to breathwork. And I'm so hopeful that these simple tools are helping people on such a deep level, and there's more and more science coming out. There's, you know, it becomes more accessible. Amazing teachers are coming out, and yeah, I think I'm excited to see where that leads to.
Me too. Me too. I really am. I think that there's an exciting future ahead. I think in terms of breath work in particular, I think that there's going to be a lot of exciting research being done, studies being done on the positive benefits of breath work. There just hasn't been done yet. And I don't know if it's a good time to transition to Kenshō stuff, but we were very interested in the research behind a lot of these holistic modalities. And I think breath work is one that has been under-researched at this point. There's a ton of research.
I agree.
Ton of research on meditation, ton of research on some other areas as well, but breathwork just hasn't been yet. And I think that I think it's going to be really, really interesting and profound.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Hey, let's talk about Kenshō, your company, Danny. What was the reason that you founded Kenshō Health, and what's the company all about?
So a number of reasons, but I would say that the core reason is that it speaks to my values, generally speaking, and that's something I've been seeking for a while. And it took me several iterations of my career to recognize that I needed to do something that was very impactful and spoke to my core beliefs. And my core beliefs are that these holistic practices, non-invasive, oftentimes alternative and deemed complementary practices, whether that's naturopathy or meditation or yoga or acupuncture, functional medicine, etc., that these can be incredibly profound in making us healthier creatures, and without a lot of the side effects of traditional conventional medicine. Personally speaking, I have a family that has gastrointestinal autoimmune diseases. And so from a young age, I've thought about preventative care. So that's always been very present for me. And many of these practices can prevent the onset of autoimmune reactions, as well as many other diseases, obesity, addiction. They can help with depression. I mean, there's so many benefits to many of these things. So for me, it was really more preventative, and then recognizing that our very broken healthcare system could be positively affected by the introduction, teaching, and accessibility of a lot of these practices. So yeah, it's become my mission to make them more accessible to more people. To make it easier to find really good providers, practitioners, and really to mainstream all of this, so that it's not some sort of fringe movement, but it's something that's very embraced by the mainstream healthcare system. So that's kind of the overall mission there. And Kenshō as a company it's a simple concept. It's really a marketplace. We call it a market network, and it has research and education and content, and thousands of these providers across the practices that I mentioned before. And we make it easy for a patient or a client or a customer to find what they're looking for. whether they know that they are seeking out an acupuncturist that focuses on sports injuries, or whether they just simply are suffering from loneliness and trying to figure out how to uncover, how to unlock something. So yeah, that's what Kenshō is. And as I mentioned, I started it with Krista Berlingcourt. We launched our first product in 2020, right before the pandemic, and yeah, we'll be launching another version of it most likely in the fall of 2021. So excited.
This year. Yeah, I already found the first version pretty great, and it's an amazing tool, and it's an easy way to find these holistic health care teachers. So great. What are the different disciplines you have on your platform?
So it's
disciplines,
very broad. Mm-hmm. We call them practices.
Practices.
We call the teachers or guides, or providers.
Yeah.
We're really trying to embrace a lot of the lingua franca of the healthcare system, and make it an easy adoption of what we're doing. So our dream in the future is that more and more large companies and insurance companies and healthcare systems in the United States are adopting some of the modalities that we have, and just integrating it into their systems, because they already have these huge systems with millions of people. So let's make it easy for them to adopt it. But the disciplines that we're talking about are acupuncture, meditation, functional medicine, the Chinese medicine, nutrition, therapies, and naturopathy. I mean, really kind of across the board of practices that focus on the root cause of a problem, and really look at the interdisciplinary, interplaying parts of a human, really a whole picture health of emotional and spiritual, psychological, physical.
Mm-hmm.
And we are focusing on practices that are more evidence-based. There are plenty of practices that are incredibly helpful, that have been helpful to me, that we don't include in the platform, simply because we want to make it as easy as possible for the traditional system to adopt what we're doing, and then we can begin kind of.
I totally agree. You need to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. And I assume as of now it's available in the United States only, right?
Technically, it's international. Okay. So you can access it internationally. It's just KenshōHealth.com, KENSHO. We do have practitioners that are outside of the continental US. Some that are we actually have a few in Portugal, for instance. I think you and Manuela are on the platform, so we have some Swiss presence. And yeah, so you can access it anywhere, and we do have folks kind of around the world, seeking out practitioners. And my dream would be that it's a very international,
it's a global network, right?
Sure. Yeah. I don't see why not. That would be beautiful.
Yeah. And to all of you listening or watching this, it's obviously not only for people that look for these kind of services, but also for those that provide them, right? They can check out your webpage and become a healthcare provider, right? And I assume it's a simple process you're taking people through.
Yeah. No,
what are the requirements, Danny, to become a provider on your platform?
So we have a rigorous application process, which I know you through, and can take a little bit of time. And it looks at credentials and licenses, education, peer reviews and customer reviews, level and years of experience, and obviously we look at certain practice areas. So while for many people it may be super useful, we don't have astrologists on the platform. But we do have naturopaths. So really kind of leaning towards areas that are a bit more evidence-based, that are more science-backed. Not necessarily because they're more experientially beneficial, but because there's a proof point that we need to be careful and make sure that it's accessible not only for the folks that are already bought in, but the folks that are just kind of beginning to be new to this process, and also, as I mentioned, to the kind of traditional healthcare system.
Yep, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, trying. But no, we've had really interesting and open conversations with some of the more traditional, conventional players, and some exciting conversations that are already happening.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to open up more of our platform to more people and just get more people exposed to it.
Are you guys already talking to insurance providers in the States if this is something you can talk about at all?
Yeah, no, we are. And that's
okay.
Yeah, so we're already in kind of in the beginning stages, but already to state organizations about using Kenshō. We're talking to large employers about using Kenshō, and we're introducing something called a care navigation tool, or care matching, where we will, if I'm someone that's suffering from, let's say, chronic lower back pain, I can come to Kenshō and say, hey, I'm suffering from chronic lower back pain. Can you help me? And we will actually reach out personally as a human and recommend, you might want to try acupuncture. It's been shown to be very effective for chronic lower back pain. Here are a few acupuncturists in your area that could be useful. So more of a handheld touch. And that's something that it's the very beginning stages, but that's something that we could scale nicely, I think, and would make it really easy for people to access providers without doing a lot of and that could be even surfacing articles or research. Hey, you should check out this article, this research that's done on chronic lower back pain. Did you know that Medicare, Medicaid actually reimburses it now? So trying to educate and make it a bit more of a human experience.
I like that. I think especially in the beginning, if you would only have the app experience, which I think is already great, it could still be confusing, right? Because there's so many different disciplines, so much you could do, and it's easy, I would say, to get lost. And having the possibility to talk to someone that is guiding you through that process, that is educated, on these topics, is, I would say, very, very beneficial.
I think so too. We were really, and from the beginning, we've used this idea of wanting to be a trusted friend as a company, as sort of a voice and tone, and really what we're executing on. So for our providers, and as well as for the patients that visit the platform, we want to be that trusted friend, someone that you can go to ask a question like, hey, I'm suffering from this, what would you recommend? And then recommending it without judgment, but with a lot of information and education.
Is that something you already have implemented right now, that you can talk to someone?
That
you're coming with the next version in fall this year?
It's coming in July.
Okay, so soon.
It's coming pretty soon. Yeah, so we're already
that's exciting.
Already building it, and that'll be part of the platform very soon. And we actually hired a new person that will be leading that for the team, which is exciting. And yeah, we have a whole new homepage redesign that's that'll be launched soon. So exciting new things occurring.
Can't wait. That's awesome. So you've been working on this project for almost 3 years now, right? A little bit more?
It depends how you count it, but I would say, probably about 3 years.
Yeah, 3 years more or less. What were some of the biggest challenges you were facing as an entrepreneur?
I mean, there've been plenty.
I can imagine.
Yeah,
I can imagine. But is there something, that comes to your mind right now? Something
sure.
people maybe can, learn something from?
Yeah, I mean, in starting a company, this is something that Krista and I say a lot. But a company is just made up of people, and it's around relationships. So I would say the most difficult and also the most rewarding aspect of creating this company has been my relationship with my co-founder. The twists and turns and up and downs that we've had together, both the personal and professional growth that we've both experienced. That has been incredibly challenging, but also really rewarding, and has paid dividends in other parts of my life as well. And as I mentioned, it's grown me tremendously. So I'd say that is something that is discussed, but maybe not fully understood. That there's the interpersonal elements of starting a company are really difficult. The relationship with a co-founder and with early employees, it can be incredibly difficult and also so rewarding. Other areas for me that have been challenging, I've never started a tech company before, so I've started companies. I was a consultant for JP Morgan, Condé Nast, and Hulu, and it still doesn't necessarily prepare you for exactly the experience of being a founder. And so there's been imposter syndrome at times and insecurity around my experience and what I'm capable of, which has been definitely challenging, but has also pushed me to learn faster and be resourceful in ways that I didn't even know were possible for me. So, but yeah, I mean, you were starting a company. I think it's like many things. It's like starting a new relationship, right? It's a challenging experience that can be very confronting. And if you're not ready to look at your demons, at your traumas, at your triggers, at your insecurities, it may not be the right choice for you because they will be exposed. But if you're brave enough to look at them, it can be a wonderful process of overcoming a lot of them and moving through them in a very quick and rapid way.
I can imagine, and also self-exploration, right? It's not easy to deal with all of that when you are building up a company and have the pressure and the pressure maybe from investors, from other stakeholders that are involved, from employees, and but yeah, I can imagine that when you go through that and are willing to go through these lessons and willing to learn, because it's all about that journey in a way, right? I think there's no school, nothing that will prepare you really for that. That journey itself is the education, and I would say one of the best business educations out there.
I completely agree. Yeah, I mean, there was a time when I was potentially going to get an MBA. I was even considering getting a PhD, and this has been one heck of an education. It's been pure learning, and I'm so grateful for it. Yeah, I mean, I really am, and for me, I can't imagine doing anything else. It's something that I'm very passionate about, and it's been great for me.
You're also really good at it, and like one of the many skills then you have, and something that is always standing out to me is exactly your ability and your talent when it comes to not only building communities and bringing people together, talented people, and you also include people, but also when there are difficulties coming up, you always go there and you you try to talk about it and find solutions in a very honest way. You also did that in our men's group, which is very, very inspiring, for
Thank
sure.
you. I appreciate that. Definitely doing my best. Sometimes better than others, but it's gratifying to hear that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
But
you.
when these challenges, maybe in the beginning stage of you building up Kenshō Health together with Krista, when you maybe first faced these challenges with people, whether it's your co-founder or employees, I assume you're now way more used to it and have different tools in your toolbox. But in the very beginning, in what way were you solving your problems? Did you ask people for help? Was there any, is there something you did to figure out these difficult situations in the beginnings stage when you were not, didn't have that whole toolbox you might have now?
Yeah, we were lucky after we raised our first round of funding, and it's not public yet, but we just raised another round. We started seeing an executive coach, Krista and I, and that was incredibly helpful.
Mm-hmm.
A guy named Matt Steiner, who's in Los Angeles as well, part of Evolution Coaching, and he's been incredibly helpful. We're not working with Matt anymore, but he was essential, really in that.
How did you find him?
Through one of our investors.
Okay.
Actually, that was kind of piloting a new program for founders in their portfolio, and that was really money well spent.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say that was very useful, and just to have a third party there to look outside of the very linear thinking of two people very involved in the company is very useful.
Yeah, and someone that can take you out of your little world, your little bubble you're sometimes in, right? And look at things from different angles, which is so helpful. And sometimes so hard to do. I have that, asking for help. It's not easy, and
not easy. It's not easy.
So beneficial.
Yeah, and I think that's the case with romantic relationships as well. Having a third party to occasionally offer a different perspective is so beneficial, and I think that many founders have begun seeing coaches more and more, but I think it's really money well spent. Initially, I would say we weren't great at it. It would take sometimes a week or 2 weeks for us to resolve tension. Mm-hmm. And now I think it gets resolved very quickly. It's not that their tension still arises, but it's just there's been a practice of surfacing it quickly, speaking, feeling into it and then speaking to it. Mm-hmm. And there's been established a trust that that we can share those things, and the other person is not going to run away or resent.
How do you, Danny, implement something like that into a company? I do understand that, you learn about it, you know how to deal with these situations, but when the company is growing and you have more employees and leader underneath you, how do you implement that, conflict solving approach into your company strategy and in the way you do things?
Yeah, I think it's built into the culture. Mm-hmm. Right. I think that with employees, it can be a consistent one-on-one, where it's weekly or bi-weekly or whatever it is, and that can be addressed very clearly, and it needs to be rewarded also. So it can't just be discussed, but there needs to be benefit and reward for speaking up to it, and working through it. with my co-founder, we have a few touch points during the week. We have a specific meeting that is working, not working, where we go into what's working for me, what's not working for me in relation to each other, where we bring it up. So we've even created a weekly meeting specifically for this purpose. and of course, things come up during the week as well, but it's useful to have a bracketed time, where if we haven't had the time or the energy to express it, we can. So I found those to be useful tools.
Oh, that's great. On a weekly basis.
Yeah, I think honestly, like, it wouldn't be a bad idea for
couples to do that.
For couples, Krista and I are certainly not romantically involved. I have a partner separate from her. And I think it would be a good idea for us to implement that. To have
for sure.
Hey, like, let's check in here. How did the week go? I didn't mention this, but I noticed that there are times when you speak over me, and it really makes me feel bad, or whatever it is. But having space to receive and to give feedback is incredibly useful.
Yeah, such a great idea. And you can combine that with a nice dinner or whatever ceremony you want to create around that, right? Amazing. And maybe it's not every week, maybe every second week is enough, but it's great idea. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Sure. And even in my romantic relationship, I began seeing a couples therapist earlier this year, and we're not going to see her consistently. Someone named Pamela Verardi, who's amazing, but it was such a great way for us to work through a lot of our bullshit. And I think going forward, even though things are going pretty well, I'd say, I think it'd be useful for us even to check in once a month or so, or once a quarter, just to check on things, and to speak to things that may be difficult and kind of the everyday or the busyness of life.
Oh man, I appreciate you bringing this up and talk about it so honestly. I think that just helps people to maybe make that step to, if there are issues and things that are maybe harder to solve, by your own, in a way. That's amazing. And I'm not sure if you
highly
mentioned.
recommend it. I've never done it before.
Yeah.
I think it's some of the best money you can spend.
That's awesome. I'm not sure if you mentioned that before. Maybe I already forgot, but is couple therapist, is that's a discipline you have on your platform, Kenshō Health?
I'm sure that we
therapy
have
for sure, right?
Yeah, we definitely have therapy, and we have some therapists who do couples therapy as well.
Okay.
But I think
you go.
Incredibly useful.
Yeah, and even people outside of the United States, we talked about it, but it's obviously an online platform, and so much is also accessible via Zoom nowadays or online. So definitely worth checking out the platform. Doesn't matter where you're from. Danny, what's next with Kenshō? It's just building, making it globally, and you just said, you accomplished the next financing round, which is amazing. Congrats, and just building.
Yeah, that's right. We hired a few people this past week, which is great and exciting. We are expanding and making the product better over the next couple of months, and we'll really be scaling. So both the provider side and the demand side, the patient side, will be scaling over the next several months, and just looking to tap into more providers, really focused on the United States, and then eventually plug into these larger networks of providers and healthcare systems and large employers, and seeing how we can really just make all these more accessible to more people. The more people we touch, the more people that are doing acupuncture or practicing meditation or seeing a naturopath, we think the better. And we think it's a It's certainly not a panacea, but we think it's several steps in the right direction to healing a lot of the pain and suffering that many Americans are going through in terms of health. So hopefully making some inroads and solving some issues there.
Oh man, that's so wonderful. I wish you guys so much success in everything you're doing. I appreciate you guys doing this, because it is helpful. I experience it by myself, the platform and what it offers, and you guys' journey, and you were a first mover, and being a first mover is challenging in the beginning, and I think especially in this field. So what you have accomplished in such a short period of time is incredible.
Thank you. I mean, it's definitely taken a village of support to get here. It's been, certainly our brainchild and our mission, but it's the mission of many people. And we've been lucky enough to have momentum from the industry, as well as kind of global catastrophes that have led to more adoption. I think COVID-19 has been in many ways beneficial. The adoption of more holistic practices. One of the positive externalities to come out of a very, very challenging and dark year has been, I think, greater adoption of a lot of these things and openness.
Yeah, it's again like the cold water we've been talking about, right? It's pain, but if you find ways to embrace it, you come out of it stronger.
Yes, I think that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah, I think that's a good theme for this chat that we had.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. How can people reach out to you?
So they can find me
or find you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the socials. Danny Steiner. I'm on Twitter. I think at Danny Steiner. Instagram, Destein with an E at the end, Dasteine. And Kenshō, Instagram is Kenshō Health, at Kenshō Health. And we're on different platforms as well. But please, sign up for our newsletter at kenshōhealth.com. And yeah, please reach out. Please connect with us. That'd be awesome.
Beautiful, Danny. What does Kenshō mean? Last time we talked about it. This time I forgot to ask you in the beginning. What is it? It's such a beautiful word. Maybe before we end here.
Yeah. So it's a word that I explored much before starting the company. And it was to describe a sensation that I've been having through meditation and through nature walks and runs. This sensation of kind of a moment of insight, or a moment of, in more of a spiritual way, a moment of awakening or download. And that is a term that's within Zen Buddhism, which is Kenshō, which is really, the definition is knowing, understanding one's nature, one's true nature. And I typically perceive it as more of a temporal understanding of one's nature versus the full enlightenment experience of Satori, which is really more like nirvana in Sanskrit. So so we think of Kenshō as an aha moment, a moment of insight that can be cultivated through practice and through understanding, through education, and hopefully through connecting with providers on our platform and with the platform itself. So we're hoping to bring about more of those sort of moments in the world. I
love it. What a wonderful way of ending this. Danny, thank you so much for taking the time. This was so insightful. Thanks for doing it again.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's so fun.
And I know I will see you soon. Wishing you so much love, brother. And take care.
Thank you, Matthias. Thank you. Love you, dude.